I am attorney Vonnie Dons III, and I represent Mr. Willie Dennis, professionally known as Willie D. On July 26, 2018, as many of you may well know, Mr. Dennis's YouTube account was wrongfully terminated by members of the YouTube team and Google. Preceding the termination of his YouTube channel, Mr. Dennis was an avid YouTube creator. He created and uploaded video content to his YouTube channel, Willie D Live, on a regular basis. YouTube notified Mr. Dennis that his YouTube account had been terminated as a result of receiving his third community guideline strike within a 3-month period. Following YouTube's notification, Mr. Dennis's account was terminated and rendered permanently inaccessible. Mr. Dennis subsequently appealed YouTube's decision, and Mr. Dennis's appeal, unfortunately and wrongfully, was denied. Mr. Dennis believes YouTube unfairly and unjustly determined that his video content violated community guidelines, namely YouTube's hate speech policy and spam policy. Let it be clear, Mr. Dennis vehemently denies promoting violence against or exciting hatred against any individuals or groups based on race, religion, ethnic origin, national origin, gender, disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity on his YouTube channel. In fact, Mr. Dennis exemplifies the exact opposite of hate and prides himself on being a voice of the people, by the people, and for the people. Especially for those who do not have the platform to vocalize their discontent with censorship, discrimination, injustice, and bigotry. Is he a voice of dissent? Yes. Is he a voice for public change and political change? Yes. Is he a voice for social change? Yes. Is he a voice for hate? Absolutely not. He is also a voice for a countless number of other black YouTubers who have been victimized by YouTube and Google's action to restrict access to their material and content in bad faith, in a discriminatory manner, in breach of agreement, and against good faith and fair dealings. In addition, YouTube's negligence and interference with business relationships should not go unchecked. As stated in YouTube's hate speech policy, it is, and I quote, okay to criticize speech that is racism and hate speech, in which Mr. Dennis did in the Maxine Waters video. And not all speech that can be perceived as mean or insulting is hate speech, which may include anti-establishment rhetoric. In America, there is a such thing as free speech. Mr. Dennis believes YouTube is violating its own policy and not adhering to the terms of service and community guidelines by falsely and wrongfully labeling his video content hate speech. Mr. Dennis strongly feels he is being discriminated against based on his race and his social and political speech, and that such censorship should not be permitted under the law. YouTube clearly and demonstrably censors political and social postings and targets liberal and black YouTube channels and storefronts. As a result, Mr. Dennis is calling for a change in legal policy and is calling for Congress to regard YouTube and websites like it places of public accommodation, such that civil rights laws apply to them. Mr. Dennis is demanding a sit-down with Google and YouTube executives to right the wrongful termination of his YouTube channel and compensate him for his financial loss and monetary damages. If YouTube refuses to do so, Mr. Dennis is prepared to move forward with a civil lawsuit against Google and YouTube. At this time, I would like to call community activist Mr. Derek Muhammad to the podium to make a statement.
Thank you, my brother. Peace and blessings, family. I stand here in defense of our brother Willie D and all other black YouTube content providers, and not just black content providers, but those content providers who are not afraid to put out there and post unadulterated truth. There's a saying that says that he who controls the diameter of your thinking also controls the circumference of your activity. When we look at our youth and we see that which we could perceive to be ignorant activity, it is only because they consumed ignorant information. So the oppressed in this country have always had a hard time producing strong voices in the media. Because when you step out as a strong voice for your community, it's only a matter of time before you are attacked. To speak for the least, the last, and the lost, and the oppressed in this country is a risk. And our brother Willie D is one of many who's taken that risk through the content that he puts out on his YouTube channels and all of the other media platforms that he has authority over. The word that we have to use here that would be most appropriate is censorship. It's censorship. And for many years, we complained about ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News, and all of these other national platforms who we believe was given to us censored information. Well, guess what? We now live in a day and time where platforms like YouTube are becoming just as guilty, and we know it. So, as a community, we stand behind Willie D. And we say, give this man and other black YouTubers free reign to give us unadulterated truth, because that's the only thing that's going to make our activity better in our community. So no censorship. And the other thing I want to say is, how can you, from a cultural standpoint, YouTube, make a fair and unbiased judgment about the content put out by black YouTubers for the black community when you yourself have a dearth of black talent in your employee pool in the first place? Your diversity, which if we were to put it over here, and if we were to put your user base over here, we believe that black people who subscribe to YouTube channels deserve better. We deserve more. So again, on behalf of our community, we stand behind Willie D Live and all other black YouTubers. And the message to other black YouTubers, just as Willie D is taking a stand, take a stand. And if you don't have the testicular fortitude to do it on your own, just simply share this video and get behind the brother who's standing up for you. In this country, we have a real concern about this becoming a police state. But before they're able to control you in the streets, they have to control the information that is fed to you through platforms like YouTube. When they can no longer fool you, they can no longer rule you. And when you shut down channels like Willie D Live, then that's just another way that you try to fool us by controlling the information that comes into our communities. Thank you. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. At this time, we want to bring before you Brother Willie D. He needs no introduction.
Thank you, Derek. First off, I want to thank everybody for coming out under these adverse weather conditions. I want to thank my brothers for standing with me right here. They've always stood with me. Derek Muhammad, Bonnie Domes, soldiers in the war for free speech, freedom of expression, YouTube, like Google, prides themselves off of free speech, allowing people to speak freely about issues that concern them. However, when you look at their practices are contrary to what their so-called mission statement is.
All right.
I want Google to know, YouTube to know, and all of those other platforms out there to know that truth is not hate speech. It's important to know that I'm not standing by myself in this. There's a lot of other YouTubers who are having the same problem with Google and YouTube. It's no secret that they're being targeted. YouTube's discriminatory practices have not just made me a victim, but it's made countless victims who don't really have the voice that I have. And I'm gonna speak for them right now. And so allow me to put this into just precise context. There are dozens of other black content providers on YouTube who has been harassed by YouTube with multiple strikes against their accounts, with many being terminated for simply reporting the news truthfully without a hidden agenda. Many of those channels are informative and promotes an objective to uplift the black community. Yet, they are constant targets of YouTube's biased, unethical mistreatment, which any reasonable person could only surmise is an attempt to control their message or run them off the platform. I first received a strike against Willie D Live from YouTube's violation community on April 17, 2017. The problem with their assessment is that the video I posted was a national news story shared by thousands of other YouTube subscribers and content providers, including Fox News, CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, and others. So what's the difference? YouTube has allowed and continues to allow a number of non-black YouTubers to share hate speech and to get away with posting videos of murder, blood, pornography, and other despicable acts, none which can be found on Willie D Live. But they're allowed to keep their channels and mine gets terminated. Why would YouTube do that? It's simple. Racism, America's Achilles heel. YouTube claims to encourage freedom of speech and defend everyone's right to express their point of view, even if unpopular. But the truth is, Google owns YouTube, and with only 2.5% of their workforce being black, YouTube's employment diversity is disproportionate to its user base. So not only do we well-meaning content providers have to worry about being false flagged by trolls, but black content providers in particular, such as myself, are at a high risk of being targeted by employees who may not agree with our message because they don't share our unique experience in America. The vast majority of YouTube videos are uploaded by content providers. So I say to YouTube and Google, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Truth is not hate speech. Thank you.
At this time, we want to open up the floor for any questions that you may have at this time. For myself, Willie D, or Mr. Derek Muhammad.
I have a question. What plan of action do you intend on taking from this date going forward? On behalf of yourself and other content creators. Okay, yes, sir.
Well, in the next coming days, we'll have negotiations with YouTube and Google. We'll reach out to them, and it really depends on what transpires. But like I said earlier in the opening statement, if YouTube and or Google refuses to do what Willie D demands, then we have no choice but to move forward with the civil action. We'll take a look at all of the different allegations and accusations. There are a number of causes of action. We'll take a look at forum selection and what we want to do and how we want to proceed. So at this time, we ask Google and YouTube to do the right thing by Willie D and by the countless number of other black YouTubers and liberal storefronts who have been undergoing this situation for months, and in some cases, for years. So Google, let's do the right thing.
Are there any plans to change your platform to
You know, that's a good question. I had a backup channel called Certified TV, and people were telling me, hey, why don't you just start a new channel? You know, they shut down my Certified TV channel also. And they were like, well, why don't you just start a new channel? Why would I do that when my message is not going to change? All they're going to do is sit back and laugh at me like, yeah, go ahead and build it up so they can tear it down. I'm not stupid. You fooled me once, shame on you. You're not going to fool me twice. Any other questions?
Yes. How many times did they say that you violated?
You know, I've been fighting YouTube and Google since April 2017. In fact, like I said in my statement, it was April 17, 2017. And I'm talking like numerous times. I can't even count the times that they've put a strike against my account. I've had to appeal. Some appeals were granted. Some appeals they flat out rejected. And here's the thing. These, like I was saying in my statement, is that, you know, these people that work at Google, they're human beings just like you and I.
Right.
And they come with their own set of prejudices and beliefs. And so if, for instance, someone who is maybe a Trump supporter, it's a well-known fact that I despise Donald Trump. So somebody who might be a Donald Trump supporter who may come across my page and say, you know what, I don't like this guy, let's strike him up, you know, and they go out and just grab one of my videos and then come up with some kind of crazy reason for giving me a strike. The rules, their community guidelines are very ambiguous. And so it leaves a lot of latitude for them to decide on their own behalf what is offensive and what's not. What's offensive to me may not be offensive to you. See, that's where the trick comes in. Mm-hmm. And so this is how they're able to get away with basically just bullying people. They really are just bullying a lot of YouTubers. And many YouTubers, all they do is YouTube. They do YouTube for a living. They are YouTubers. I have other things that I do, but many of these people are YouTubers, and they make a living doing this. And Google and YouTube would just snatch the rug from under their feet, their financial feet, and have their family out in the streets. They don't give a damn, you know, just because they don't agree with something that they may say. That could be totally within reason, but it don't really. A lot of what they do don't even have a reason. You like looking at these videos, you're saying, well, what's wrong with that? You can look at the video and be like, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with the fact is that it's who's judging it.
Right.
Just like when you go into a court of law in America. The judge, if you go into a court of law in America and you're in there you're in the courtroom for, let's say, speeding. Well, the judge may have a relative or something who got into a really bad wreck for speeding. So he's going to come down a lot harder on people who speed than he may come down on somebody who drinks and drives. So this is a big problem at YouTube, man, and they need to clean it up, and they need to make their rules and their guidelines more direct. On my page, I have several words that you cannot even, when you go to my YouTube channel, there's certain words that you can't say on my channel because, you know, I had to clean it up. It was just getting out of line. You know, I had a lot of trolls coming in just saying all kind of crazy things. So I was like, I got to clean this thing up. And I just started like hitting with, there's a lot of words. Some words are very offensive to certain groups of people. And they'll figure out ways to say it. They may come up with, you know, 30, 40, 50 different ways to say it. And each time they say it a different way, I go in there and say, you know, block it. Make sure that I filter that type of stuff. So I'm a very responsible YouTuber. When I'm on that platform, I'm very responsible, and I'm very cognitive of the fact that I'm being watched at all times. So it wouldn't make any sense for me to do something that would adversely affect my platform, knowing that so many people count on it.
do you get the sense that it's YouTube itself, it's policies of YouTube itself, or are they bowing to outside pressure?
It's YouTube policies. It's their policies and it's their politics. That's what it is.
Is it because of who you are, your name, the background in which you come from? Because your journalism skills shows no difference from any other journalism with the things that you're reporting.
Right. Oh, I don't know. I don't know that in particular. I do know that they don't like my message. The people who work there don't like my message. And there's a lot of trolls who don't like my message. I get that. But it's YouTube's responsibility to weed out the trolls. When you go to a site on, say, let's say Yelp, if you go to Yelp and you put a bad review on a company and many people start coming and dropping bombs on the company saying bad things about the company, Yelp has a system in place to identify trolls. They say, wait a minute, this account looks like it's under attack. So we're going to remove those strikes, so to speak, those flags. This account is being falsely flagged. So we're going to remove that. We're going to overlook that. We're going to make sure we don't bring this company's reputation down. Make sure that this company's reputation doesn't suffer because they're being targeted by a few people. You see, YouTube doesn't do that. But it is their obligation to do that, and they don't do it, and they, for whatever reason, won't do it. And all I can surmise is that YouTube apparently is okay with having a racist environment, and also upholding a racist environment and a biased environment. We got a lot of YouTubers out there, people who have helped build YouTube up. There's a lot of YouTubers out there who were on YouTube many years before I ever thought about ever getting on YouTube. And they helped YouTube become the conglomerate that it is. They helped Google become the conglomerate that it is. And this is how they repay them also. It's like spin your face, we do you like we want to do you, push you around. Listen, people say, well, why don't you just get off the platform? It's their platform, they can do whatever they want to. Not necessarily. If you invite me to your house, it's one thing. If I come to your house uninvited, it's another. If I come to your house uninvited and you pop me in the head, I can't be mad. But if you invite me to your house and pop me in the head, then I should have some retribution, and you should have some accountability for that. Mm-hmm. And YouTube has invited the world to its platform, but then decides once you get on there, based on what you say, we'll determine whether or not we want to keep you on the platform. Mm-hmm. And so they're clearly being biased. They're clearly being racist. Again, you can look at their employment history. Look at them numbers. 2.5% of their employees are black. That's it. 2.5%. That will tell you, that speaks volume.
Right. Can I touch on that too? Just to jump on the wagon of that last point that Will made. Think about it. Black people make up 13%, roughly 13% of the population in this country, according to the census. I don't know when the last time I filled out a census report, but the point that I'm making is it's even higher than that. So if we make up 13% of the population in this country, but we only represent 2.5% of employees at Google, and when you look at the millions in black people coming from the black community that subscribe to YouTube and watch YouTube every single day, Willie D has a right to take this stand because it is we who make YouTube the powerful conglomerate that it is. Without subscribers and its user base, YouTube is not as strong as it is. So the major problem is Google and YouTube have a diversity problem. They've admitted this publicly. And that diversity issue is now becoming reflective in the way that it handles black content providers. And I guess if you wanted to put an activist hashtag on it, you could say that black content providers matter. Why do I say it like that? I say it like that because as an activist who've dealt with many police brutality issues, we have a problem when people from the outside of our community are sent into our community to police our community who are not culturally aware of the norms in our community. So a police officer who's coming from, let's say, Conroe, could come to the black community and ask me a question. I could answer him the same way a white person would answer him, but I might use my hands like this. That might be offensive to him, but it's really just a cultural thing. That's the way that we talk. So the same way we don't necessarily want people from the outside of our community over policing our community, when it comes to our information, we don't want people who don't understand us policing our information and our information sources. That's what's happening at Google and YouTube. And this could be a teachable moment and an opportunity for them to fix the problem. 2.5% of your employees are black, but 13% of the country is black. We got a problem on the seesaw there.
And another thing too is that only 1.2% of those employees are women, are black women. Only 1.2% of Google's employees are black women. That's ridiculous, man. You know, like I would feel some type of way if I called myself a decent person, if I called myself a fair person, if I called myself a person that's about equality. I would feel like a hypocrite to have to admit that. But you know, I don't know. You know, I don't know if they're okay with feeling that way, or if you know, it's something that they just don't have people around that's critical thinkers and doers. You know, maybe they know, maybe they got other things on their mind, like, you know, painting the offices over or something. I don't know, but it needs to definitely be addressed. And you know, before I go, I want to make sure that people do follow my videos on patreon.com, patreon.com/Willie D Live. That's where you can go. That's where my videos are at right now. That's where I'm posting videos. And see for yourself. Check out the content and see for yourself. Can you find, I implore any one of you to go out there and try to find a video of mine that promotes hate speech, pornography, or spam, or any of these type of things that they accuse me of.
All right, in light of everything, I want to reiterate what Willie D said as far as following him. It's very important at this time to support him and follow him. So I want to encourage everyone out there to follow him at Patreon, patreon.com/Willie D. And we'll see what happens. Willie D Live, that's right, Willie D Live. And we'll see what happens with Google, if they reinstate his page, and we'll be in negotiations with Google and YouTube in the near future. I want to thank everyone for coming out. And I want to thank Mr. Derek Muhammad, community activist, and definitely Mr. Willie D. Thank you.